Question number 1 here is, during a beta minus decay, a neutron decays into a proton, an electron, and a chargeless particle. What is the name of this chargeless particle? Let me tell you what is a beta decay. So there are three subcategories of beta decay. If I write beta decay, we can write it into three categories. One is beta plus, beta minus, and another one is electron capture. So what are those? In beta plus decay, a proton will be converted into a neutron by accepting the electron surrounding, and in the beta minus decay, a neutron is broken down into a proton and an electron, and the electron capture is simply a process where the electron which are revolving around the nucleus will be captured by the nucleus, and it nucleus will be converted into a neutron. So these are the different categories. But during this process, especially in the beta plus decay and in the beta minus decay, whenever this conversion is happening, along with this, the emitting the proton and electron or accepting the electron, along with that, there is an uncharged, that is the chargeless particle will also be generated. And the question here is for what is the name of that chargeless particle. Let me show you here. Consider this is a beta minus decay which we are talking about. Consider an example of a carbon foot, that's a carbon, so which has like 6 protons and the 8 neutrons. So number of protons and the number of neutrons, so always this is representing the carbon 14 is the atomic mass of the carbon is 14. So usually we represent the element in general as, if I'm talking about the element as X, here the downward it will be written as the atomic number. Atomic number is same as the number of protons, isn't it? Atomic number is same as the number of proton. And atomic mass. So atomic mass is basically the number of proton plus the neutron. So that is atomic mass of this element is 14 and the atomic number here is gonna be 6. Now if this undergoes a beta minus decay, what actually is happening here? Look at here, the number of proton gas increased from 6 to 7 and the number of neutron got reduced from 8 to 7. So there is increment in the number of proton and decrement in the number of neutrons, but there is no change in the atomic mass. Anyway, the atomic mass, what was the before? 6 plus 8, that was 14. Atomic mass will after remains the same, 7 plus 7, it remains the 14. Only the atomic number changes, and this kind of decay it's called the beta minus. And while decaying that beta minus, what are the things are given out? So which are the things are given out here? Along with that, along with increasing the number of proton, an anti-neutrino, that is the chargeless particle which is being emitted along with the emission of the electron. Now question here is about what is the name of the chargeless particle which emits during the beta minus decay? That is, I should say, anti-neutrino. That's the answer. But if I'm telling you, because in the exam they may ask you about the beta plus decay as well, the same thing. When the beta plus decay occurs, as I told, when the proton will be combined with the electron and converted into a neutron. So in that beta plus decay, a proton number will decreases by 1 and the neutron number will increases by 1. Look at here, before there were 6 protons and it is converted into 5 now, and there were 4 neutrons before, it is converted into 5 now. So atomic mass remains same, only the change in the atomic number of that element happens. So that is how it is getting converted. And during this process, instead of emitting the electron, a positron is emitted. Along with that, a chargeless particle which is in the beta plus decay, we called it as neutrino. Neutrino is the chargeless particle which is emitted during the beta plus decay, and antineutrino is the chargeless particle which is emitted into the beta minus decay. So antineutrino and the chargeless particle, whatever we are representing here, the electron in the beta minus decay, it will be also written as beta minus, or sometime it will also written as electron with its nucleus nuclear number is 0 and its charge is going to be -1. So they may use this notation For electron, they may use this notation. It doesn't mean, so it means the, like, it is, they are representing the electron. So we're gonna say answer to this question, it's gonna be anti-neutrino. This is the chargeless particle which is emitted. Question number 2 here is, the figure below shows a light ray that travels from a material 1 and arrives at the interference between material 1 and material 2. What is the angle of reflection? So the diagram has been shown here. Question is about what is the angle of reflection. Basically, whenever a light ray enters from the material 1 to material 2, or whenever the light ray strikes on the boundary of the different medium, the part of the light will be reflected back and the part of the light will be refracted. So if I am representing a ray diagram for this, the part of the light will be reflected. As I say, suppose the light ray is hitting this boundary of the material 1. So material 1 may be any, maybe air or water, anything, it will be mentioned to you. And this is the material 2. So when it is hitting the boundary of the material 1 and 2, the point where it hit, it is said to be the normal. This is whatever the y-axis which has been represented here, it is called the normal. Now what is the angle of reflection? As I said, when the light ray hits to the boundary, there is two things happens here. The part of the light will be reflected, it goes back like this. This is called the reflection. This is called the reflection. And the part of the light will be refracted, enters into the medium. This is called refraction. So reflection is different and the refraction is different. Now question is about what is the angle of reflection. So how do I calculate the angle of reflection? So whenever the light ray goes back, bounces back by hitting this certain medium's boundary, the angle of reflection is same as the angle of incident. Now you may ask you, what is angle of incident? This is not the angle of incidence. This is not the angle of incident. So angle of incidence is the angle made between the angle between the normal and the incident ray. This angle is called the angle of incidence. So this is usually we represented as theta I. So theta I, it's basically, I can say, angle of incident ray, incident. And what is the angle of reflection? Angle of reflection is this, the angle made with the normal and the reflected light. So that usually we represent as theta r. This is the angle of reflection. And how the angle of incident and the angle of reflections are related? Whenever a light ray hits to the boundary and the bounces back, one thing remember, angle of incident is same as the angle of reflection. These two angle will remain the same. Angle of refraction will be different, but incident angle and the reflected angle will be same. So how do I calculate that incident angle now? So as we know, the y is representing the normal, whatever the line which you have drawn, this is representing the normal to the plane, normal to the plane, or normal to the boundary which we are drawn. And whenever we are saying the normal, it makes an angle of 90 degree with the surface plane. This angle is going to be 90 degree now. In this angle, if we say 90 degree, then one of the angle with the incident light and the plane has given to us as 60, then how do I write it? This arrangement can be written as now incident angle plus 60 degree, both add up to give you 90 degree. So from this one, I can calculate what is the angle of incident just simply by arranging this. So angle of incident here is going to be written as 90 minus 60 degree. That is, angle of incident is 30 degree. And I told angle of incident is same as the angle of reflection. So from this one, I can conclude that angle of reflection is also equal to 30 degree. This is the angle of reflection here, and which is the answer choice which has given to us. A is the right answer, because the angle of reflection we got it as 30 degree. Question number 3 here is, three capacitors are connected in series as shown in the following diagram. What is the net capacitance between the points X and Y? So what is the net capacitance of this arrangement? That's the question. So if you can see here, the capacitors are connected in series. As they have already mentioned, this type of arrangement is called series. And while finding the net capacitance of the capacitor when they are connected in series, we need to follow the net capacitance. Assume that, let me give that name as for my reference, it will be written as capacitor 1, capacitor 2 and capacitor 3. Whenever the capacitors are connected in series, the net capacitor we calculate by using this rule. So 1 by Cs is the total capacitance in series is equals to 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2 plus 1 by C3. This is the formula when the capacitors are connected in series. So what will be this? You just need to substitute their values. So 1 by Cs, whatever the value you are getting, 1 divided by what is the value of first capacitor? It's going to be 24 microfarad plus 1 by 39 microfarad plus 1 by what it is 43 microfarad. So if you insert the values as it is in the calculator, you'll be getting 1 by Cs is equals to 0.09056. So this is the value what you are getting, but actually the question is about what is the value of net capacitance, the total capacitance in series. So to get the value of Cs, you have to reciprocate it, flip it. It means this can be written here as Cs will be calculated as 1 by this value. So 0.09056. If you substitute, if you reciprocate it, you just need to press a inverse button on your calculator. Inverse answer, it will give you the value. So that will be written as 11.04 microfarad. No need to write the unit like micro every time, 10 to the power negative 6, 10 to the power negative 6, because all the capacitance will be having the same. So this is equivalent to 11.04 microfarad, and then our answer matches with the option A. So this is how you calculate the whenever the capacitors are connected in series. There is another calculation. This is not related with the question, but let me tell you. How do we calculate when the capacitors are connected in parallel? Which type of arrangement say parallel? This is the series. This is the series arrangement. And how will be the parallel arrangement of the capacitor? Parallel arrangement is, so when the all the terminals of the capacitors are connected at the one point, I can say this is the one point of the capacitor, this is the another terminal of the capacitor, this will be connected, this is the one capacitor, this is this arrangement. This type of arrangement, it's called a series, parallel connection. Arranging the capacitor in the parallel. This is can be said to be point X, point Y. They may ask you what is the net capacitance in this arrangement. So if I'm saying C1, C2, C3, so the net capacitance CP when it has been connected in parallel is simply adding them as it is. C1 plus C2 plus C3. So the net capacitance here is going to be adding them all. That is the value of the net capacitance which is connected in parallel. That's, they may ask you also a series or the parallel. This is what you need to solve, right? Question number 4 here is, the illustration shows a steel rod is fixed between the two walls. The rod has a length of 10 meter and a circular cross section area with radius 0.03 meter. How much force is generated by the rod on the wall if the temperature increases from 20 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius? So this is the arrangement. So the rod has been fixed between the two wall, and original length, the initial length of the rod, it's gonna be 10 meter. So initial length sometime we represent as the L naught. Let's take assume that L initial length is gonna be the 10 meter. And as the temperature increases, what happens? The rod will get expanded. That is what the linear expansion. So rod will get expanded with the certain factor. And when they're expanding that rod, so definitely it will be touching to the wall, and it is insert, in like this is touching to the wall, and it is pushing that wall towards. So it's applying the certain amount of force. Now question is about what is that force. We have to calculate what is the force exerted by the rod when it get expansion. And the cross-sectional area of that rod also they have given to us. It's a circular rod. So now what we need to calculate is what is the force exerted by the rod. So to calculate this, we need to go with the one expression calls what we say the modulus of elasticity. So there is a formula to calculate that, what we say modulus of elasticity. So what is the elasticity? That is basically the tensile stress or the tensile strain exerted by the rod on the surrounding material. And this formula usually we write it as modulus of elasticity. Generally we represent with E. This is equals to, this elasticity formula will be equal to F times the L naught. F is the force exerted times the original length of that rod, F times L naught, divided by A times delta L. So what is this delta L is representing? Delta L is representing the change in the length because of the increase in the temperature. Let me read each of the what are this one. As we say, E is the modulus of elasticity. Modulus of elasticity can also be said as Young's modulus. This is the another name. Young's modulus is same as the modulus of elasticity. So what is the F is representing here? F is representing the force. L naught is representing the initial length. L naught is representing the initial length. A is representing the area, basically the cross-sectional area of that rod. Area of cross section, and what is this delta L is representing? Delta L is representing change in the length, so these are the things what I need to know about. So in this one, so to calculate the force, I have to arrange this given expression in terms of F. You have to arrange this force formula in terms of F. So how do you can arrange it? So by doing the simple mathematics, what I can do is that I can arrange the value of F. I can write the value of F as E times A delta L divided by L naught. So this is what I can arrange. Now I have to calculate the force. Now to calculate the force, I should know the how much is the increase or change in the length, and what is the area, what is the initial value I know, and what is the Young's modulus. In general, for the at the room temperature, that is 25 degrees Celsius, the value of the Young's modulus ranges from 1.9 into 10 to the power of 11 to 2.1 into 10 to the power 11. So Pascal. So 1.9 into 10 to the power 11 to 2.1 into 10 to the power 11. But this is, we here we don't know the exact value, but in the exam, exact value of this modulus elasticity will be given to you. By making use that, you can calculate. As we know, in your physics exam, the reference sheet, the formula sheet will be provided to you, and all the constants values, all the required information related to the questions are included in that. You can make use accordingly and you can solve it. So I know the value of E now. I can calculate what is the value of A, that is the area. It's, if I'm representing that cross section, it is simply looks like a circle. If I say the front side of it, so it looks like a circle with the certain radius as 0.03, right? So, and what is the area of a circle? Area of a circle is pi r square. Substitute the value of this. This will be written as, let me write it here, pi times 0.03 square. So I know the area now. I know the initial length, which has been given to us as the 10 meter. Now let's calculate the change in the length. That is the linear expansion. There is another formula to calculate the change in the length. So delta L will be written as alpha times L naught times the delta T. The change in the length, it's basically alpha, that is the linear expansion constant. This will be written as linear coefficient coefficient of expansion, linear coefficient of expansion, and on an average the value of alpha is going to be 1.2 into 10 to the power negative 5 per degree Celsius. Per degree Celsius is its value. I know the initial length. Now what is the change in the temperature? Delta T, change in the temperature. If you see the initial temperature we had like 20 degrees Celsius, I can say T1 is 20, and the final temperature T2 is gonna be 40 degrees Celsius. I'm just using this as to calculate the change in the temperature. Change in the temperature is T2 minus T1, that is 40 minus 20, that gives you 20 degrees Celsius. Substitute all these values in the above formula. You'll be knowing the value of what is the delta L. So delta L, change in the linear expansion, can be written as 1.2 into 10 to the power negative 5 times what is the initial length L naught, it's gonna be 10, times change in the temperature is 20. If you substitute these all values in the calculator, you'll be getting it as 2.4 into 10 to the power minus 3 meter. So this is the change in the length. So now by making use this, we can calculate what is the value of the force exerted. So we know F is equals to, we have the formula EA. So EA delta L divided by L naught. Substitute their values. Elasticity modulus, I'll be taking it as, let's go with extreme, 2.1 into 10 to the power 11. Area is gonna be, just I can write as pi times 0.03 square times the original, like change in the length, the delta L, we got it as 2.4 into 10 to the power minus 3. This entire thing, this whole result divided by L naught. What is the initial length we had? 10 meter. After inserting these values as it is in the calculator, you'll be getting the answer. That value here you'll be getting it as 1.420 into 10 to the power 5 Newton. This is the amount of force which is exerted. So 1.42 into 10 to the power 5 Newton. But if you look at to the option, so this is what I am getting here. But if you look at to the option, so none of the option giving me this value 1.42. But as I told, I don't know the exact value of the Young's modulus constant, but in exam it will be given to you. I have just taken the range value, the extreme value. And based on that, I'm calculating. So my answer, force which is exerted, is getting slight 0.08 Newton more than as compared to that. So the nearest value which is matches with that 1 point. So nearest value 1.42 into 10 to the power 5, which is matches nearly with the 1.34. So this is the answer which I can go with. So why there is a difference? Because I don't know exact value of that E, but in exam it will be given to you. So you can substitute as it is. And I'm 100% sure you're going to get the same answer what they have mentioned here, right? So that we go with option A as the right choice here. Question number 5 here is, a 20 into 10 to the power negative 6 coulomb charge is moving at a constant speed 5 into 10 to the power 7 meter per second through a magnetic field strength of 3 Tesla at an angle of 30 degree with the magnetic field direction. Find the magnetic force on this moving charge. Now question is about the arrangement has been shown to us. A charge is moving, value of charge is given to us, and the charge is moving in a magnetic field which has been represented in the direction B with the speed. A charge is moving like this, means a charge is moving. Suppose if the same charge here I represent with the magnetic field, a charge will be moving with this direction and it is making an angle of 30 degree with the magnetic field, and the speed of the charge they have given to us. Speed means the velocity of the charge is given to us, and they are asking us what is the magnetic force exerted on that charge because of the magnetic field. This is a simple and the straightforward question which based on the formula, there is nothing conversion and all are required. The formula for the magnetic force FB will be written as QVB sine theta. This will be the formula. FB is equals to QVB sine theta. So what is the FB is representing the force, where FB is representing the magnetic force here, magnetic force. Q is the charge, Q is the charge, V is the speed or velocity, also we can say speed or velocity, and the B is the magnetic field, magnetic field. So all the values are given to us. So all the values, what is the value of charge? Q value they have given to here us. If you substitute here, if you substitute, let me write it here. FB is equals to QVB sine theta. If you substitute the value of charge here is what? 20 into 10 to the power negative 6. This is basically representing the value of charge. And this is representing the speed. This is the V. And this is representing the magnetic field B. And this is the angle. So substitute here 20 into 10 to the power negative 6 is the value of charge. 20 into 10 to the power negative 6 coulomb times what is the speed, which is moving, 5 into 10 to the power 7. 5 into 10 to the power 7 meter per second. And what is the value of B, that is the magnetic field? It's going to be 3. And sine of angle 30, the sine of angle 30. If you insert these values as it is in your calculator, you'll be getting the answer to the sine of angle 30 we are getting, right? Yes. If you insert this value as it is in the calculator, you'll be getting that as 1500 will be the value. So 1500 Newton, because unit of that force is going to be Newton. So this is the answer to the question what they are asking us. So I should go here with the option A. Just substitute their values and check it out. You'll be getting this value as the answer. So A is equals like force exerted on the charge is going to be 1500 Newton, and that is option A.